Good morning. Today we're going to talk about understanding copyright. We're going to begin by talking about the First Amendment. To understand copyright, we need to look at the First Amendment. It specifically protects 6 freedoms. The right to believe what you want to believe, also known as freedom of religion. The right to tell others what you think, also known as freedom of speech. The right for the press to report on whatever they want. The right to peaceably gather with others. And the right to ask the government to change or to petition the government. Copyright law builds upon the values of the First Amendment by emphasizing that sharing ideas and information leads to new knowledge and innovation. The purpose of copyright is to promote the creation and use of knowledge. Let's talk about the purpose of copyright. These ideas were built into the Constitution in 1787, which reads, "The Congress shall have power to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited time to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writing and discoveries." Historians identify several principles that support this approach to intellectual property rights. Science and arts, the creation of new knowledge and cultural experiences are important for society. Congress has the power to grant authors, artists, scientists, and inventors exclusive property rights for the fruits of their labor. Making it possible for authors, artists, and inventors to benefit from their intellectual property provides a motivation to produce knowledge for the good of society. In order to maximize the social value of new knowledge and cultural works, the duration of intellectual property rights should be limited and are not intrinsic or assumed. The rights of copyright. Owners have the exclusive right to do and to authorize others to do these things: reproduce the work, distribute copies of the work to the public by sale or other transfers of ownership, or by rental, lease, or lending, to perform the work publicly, to display the work publicly, to create derivative works, that is, to create new works based closely on the original, such as a translation of a book from one language into another, or making the book into a movie. The fair use doctrine. Copyright law has an important exemption, a way that copyright law does not become a vehicle for preventing use of copyrighted material in the service of society, just because an owner wants to maximize profit. Fair use helps ensure that people have access to the information they need to fully participate as citizens. The fair use doctrine allows users to make use of the copyrighted works without permission or payment when the benefit to society outweighs the cost to the copyright holder. The fair use doctrine, which is found in Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, states that the use of copyrighted material for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, which includes multiple copies for classroom use, scholarship, or research, is not an infringement. Seeking permission to use copyrighted materials. Contact the distributor or publisher of the material. If they are not the entity in charge of the materials, they will be able to point you in the right direction. You need to be as specific as possible. Give page numbers or send a photocopy of the materials you are requesting copyrighted access to. Fully describe any non-print material. State how you intend to use the material, where you intend to use it, how many copies will be made, if that is the case. Fees for reproduction are sometimes negotiable. Don't be hesitant to ask. If for any reason you do not use the requested materials, make this fact known to the distributor or publisher, because without this formal notice, you will be responsible for any fees incurred. And be sure to keep copies of all correspondence, contacts, and records of all transactions related to the copyright materials. Now let's discuss some copyright concerns. We're going to begin with software. Congress amended the Copyright Act to clear up questions and fair use of copyrighted programs. The changes define the term computer program for copyright purposes and set forth rules on permissible and non-permissible use of copyrighted computer software. According to the amended law, users are permitted to do the following with a single copy of a program. They are allowed to make one backup or archival copy of the program, install one copy of the program onto a computer hard drive, adapt a computer program from one language to another if the program is not designed in that language, add features to a copyrighted program to make better use of the program, and to adopt a copyrighted program to meet its local needs. Continuing with copyright concerns for software, without the copyright owner's permission, you are prohibited from doing the following: making multiple copies of a copyrighted program, making additional copies from an archival or backup copy, making copies of copyrighted programs to be sold, leased, loaned, or even given away, selling a locally produced adaptation of the copyrighted program, making multiple copies of an adaptation of a copyrighted program, even for use within a school or school district, putting a single copy of a program into a network without permission or a special site license, duplicating the printed copyright software documentation unless allowed by the copyrighted software company. Now we're going to discuss copyright concerns for video. The Copyright Act of 1976 did not cover educational uses of video recordings of copyrighted broadcasts. A negotiating committee composed of representatives from the video industry, educators, and the government agreed on a set of guidelines for video recording of broadcasts for education use. The following guidelines apply only to nonprofit educational institutions. You may do the following: ask your media technology specialist to record the program if the teacher is unable to do it for themselves. The request must come from a teacher. To retain the recording of a broadcast for a period of 45 calendar days, after which you must delete the original and all copies of the broadcast. Use the recording in class once per class during the first 10 school days of the 45 calendar days, and a second time if instruction is needed to be reinforced. To have professional staff view the program several times for evaluation purposes during the original 45 days. Make a limited number of copies to meet legitimate needs, but all copies must be deleted after the 45 days of original use. Use only the part of the program that instructional need warrants. and they must enter into a licensing agreement with the copyright holder to continue use of the program. Continuing with copyright concerns for video, you may not do the following. Record premium cable services, such as HBO or any other paid channels, without express written permission. Alter the original content of the program. Exclude the copyright notice of the program. Record a program in anticipation of future use. Retain the program in any copies after 45 days. Also, be sure to remember that these guidelines were not part of the Copyright Act, but are rather an agreement between producers and educators. You should accept them as guidelines in good faith. Next, we're going to discuss the copyright concerns for visuals. The following guidelines address use of visuals by teachers and students. You are permitted to use one illustration per book, periodical, magazine, or newspaper, one diagram, chart, or picture from a single source, one visual per source for presentation visuals, such as PowerPoints. You are not permitted to use the reproduction of copyrighted cartoon characters. Moving on to the copyright concerns for audio and music. The use of music is a highly regulated activity in the realm of copyright law. It is also heavily policed and enforced by the music industry. Permitted copying of music includes the following. For academic uses other than performances, teachers and students may make copies of up to 10% of a musical work, provided that the excerpt does not comprise a part of the whole that would constitute a performable unit, such as a section, movement, or aria. Single copies of a recording of student performances may be made for rehearsal purposes or for evaluation. Single copies of a recording of copyrighted music may be made from a recording owned by a school or teacher for the purpose of constructing oral exercises or assessments. Internet transmissions may involve the reproduction and distribution of musical works and the copying of a copyrighted musical work or sound recording onto your digital device. Unauthorized copying constitutes exploitation of the reproduction rights. Even though some sites advertise music free from copyright, it is critical to carefully review the licensing agreements regarding approved uses of the material. It is better to ask than to be caught with illegal copies of music. Copyright concern for audio and music continued. The following are not allowed: compiling a collection of recordings, making copies of printed music scores, additional copies must be purchased or duplication rights must be obtained, making an arrangement of a copyrighted musical work without permission of the copyright holder. This falls into the category of creating a derivative work. Performing a musical work publicly without the owner's permission, or copying music from a website. You must also pay for the use of music you download from the internet. The copyright owners of sound recordings have rights set forth in the Digital Performance Right in Sound Recordings Act of 1995 and the Digital Millennium Copyright Act of 1998. These laws give sound recording copyright owners rights to online performances of their recordings. These are the two sites, the site and the book that I obtained the materials for this presentation. Thank you.